Start putting the mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Welcome to SaveOne Podcast, where we document real-life stories of hope and encouragement with a raw, authentic, and unfiltered approach. Join us as we aim to be the beacon of light in the storm of life that gives hope and direction to those who are struggling to find their way in the storm. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see y'all this week. I got Jordan Jones here with Holos, and he also is a ex-Green Beret. So today I'm really excited. We've probably been trying for, I think, around a month to link up. And I've been super excited. I've followed you for actually a really long time. Back when I was a Richland cop, met you when you were doing Rugged Way.
Yeah,
at one point.
That's crazy.
And then we have our mutual friend, Teresa Apel, who is very passionate about you, what you're doing, and talks about you all the time. So come to find out, we're kind of similar paths with passions and experiences. And so I'm super excited to have you on here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, good. And we also got K9 over here with us. Tell us that name again.
Yeah, this is Gunter. He's I guess you would call him a German, Belgian, half and half, Belgian Malinois, German Shepherd.
He's cool. He's been chilling for the last little while. He's been the topic of discussion since you came in.
Yeah, hopefully he stays like this. That'd be great.
He keeps tossing that bone.
Yeah, he's trying to get me to move.
That's what it is. We're going to deal with him throughout it, which that'll be just fine. So, look, I want to jump in. Where I'd love to start with you, Jordan, is I want to talk a little bit about your background, where you come from, career a little bit.
Okay.
And then the bulk of what we're going to be getting into, though, of course, is your book, what you're teaching on. And I really want to dive into a lot of the mental health, how to be the best men that we can be.
Absolutely.
As civilians, as operators, LEO, firefighters, military, everybody. Real quick, want to give a quick little introduction. So you were born in Ruston, Louisiana. You are a Army Green Beret. I believe you started off as a Marine.
No. I actually started off as a Louisiana National Guardsman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Started off in the Guard and went that route. So we're going to get into that because that's interesting. You've had 3 combat rotations, 2 in Iraq, 1 in Northwest Africa. Post-service, you're now doing contract work with your company, Holos. You're teaching LEO and military performance optimization and wellness.
Yep.
This statistic right here I love on you. You've been married 18 years this July.
That's right.
And I love that because, and you have 3 children, especially special forces.
Yeah.
You don't get too many guys that make it through those careers. It seems like the divorce rates.
It's outrageous. It's
up
probably 80%,
Yeah.
I'd say.
So that I always, anytime I hear military guys, when they talk about that, I'm like, I kind of judge that a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Like the guys who, like you, been married 18 years, says a lot about you, your wife, your family, where your priorities are. So couple of things you achieved. You were second in the nation for Army Best Warrior competition. You also were honor graduate from the Special Forces qualification course. So
that's right.
2 pretty big accomplishments there.
I guess so, yeah.
So
it's been a long time ago, but
yeah.
The younger me apparently was a stud. So yeah.
Hey, what's the Toby Keith song? Good as I once was.
Yeah, I can be that good once.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try you. We'll leave it. We'll leave it at that.
Right,
so whether it was 10 years ago or last week, I don't care. Those type of accomplishments are worth noting.
Well, thank you.
Well, man, I want to jump in. Let's hear about give me kind of the high level, a little bit of life and getting into military, and let's go from there and work our way through a little bit of career stuff.
Yeah. So Green Beret. Everybody asks why that, and as a kid, I watched John Rambo, and he was a Green Beret, and so that's kind of why that stuck, I guess. I don't know. I was like 6 or 7 and watched it with my dad. My mom was super pissed that he let me watch it, but First Blood and
Heck yeah.
being a Green Beret just kind of stuck with me. I did try going to college young, wasn't ready for that and really didn't have the mind for it. I went to Louisiana Tech University for about 2 years and then was like, man, I want to be in the military. It's all I've ever wanted to do. And so the compromise between me and my parents was the Guard, because I was actually trying originally to go active duty Army with a Ranger contract. And at one point they had a thing where you could have the Ranger contract, but also have like written into your contract that after 2 years, I guess, you could go to selection to be a Green Beret.
Okay.
And after talking that over with my parents, I decided, hey, let's just try it out. And not knowing any better and not knowing how everything works, was like, yeah, if you love it, then you can swap to active duty. It's not that easy. So I kind of locked in as a Louisiana Guard guy. Went to airborne school pretty quick. Was a combat engineer. I enjoyed it. Did my first rotation as a Louisiana Guardsman actually to Iraq. So my first trip was with those guys. Came home from that. That's actually where I got introduced into the whole Best Warrior thing. I was training to go to selection, and so I was in really good shape. I thought that this was going to be my way in is to be in good shape, get back from that deployment, and then just transition. But it didn't work that way. But because I was in good shape, I got told I was going to do this Best Warrior thing. I was like, dude, I don't even know what that is. And they're like, yeah, you're going to do great at it. No one showed up to the first one, so I won by default. And then ended up winning, I guess, the All Iraq, whatever I don't know. I don't even know what it's called. It's NCO of the quarter or NCO of the deployment. Oh, wow. And that qualified me when I came home to do state and then regionals and then all Guard and all Army. And by then it was kind of my job. They put me on orders to just train for this thing, and that's all I did.
Now, was it all like athletic, running, course type material, or was there also combatives?
Yes, there's combatives involved, ruck march. All the physical things you can imagine, like obstacle courses and all of that. And then there's like a soldier handbook that they, I don't even remember what it's called now because it's been so long ago. But I basically memorized the entire thing. So if sergeant majors ask me the question in a board, and you're all dressed up in your blues sitting there, and they ask questions, and I could just regurgitate all these Army programs and the ARs and all the stuff where it was because I had it memorized. And that went on. That was my career for about 2 years. And when I finished that, I instructed at the NCO Academy in Louisiana for about 2 years, and then finally got my opportunity to go to what on the SF side of the Special Forces side of things, they call it a SFRE, Special Forces Readiness Exam. Maybe that's what the E stands for. I don't know. I went to it, passed, went to selection, passed, and I really wanted to be an engineer because I had a background in being an Army engineer, and which does not mean I draw papers or anything. It's mostly explosives. Yeah. And
what year was that?
Oh, dude. For selection?
Yeah.
Selection was 2014.
Okay.
Or 13.
Okay.
Somewhere right. 13. The end of 13. And the Army told me that I was going to be a medic because of my scoring and whatever. And so I was like, dude, this is going to suck. Like, I don't care anything about being a medic. I don't know anything about it other than just CLS, Combat Lifesaver. Yeah. But turns out some of their tests they have you do are accurate.
Yeah.
And I was really good at it, apparently. So
awesome.
Made it through the Q course.
That makes a little bit of sense now because I know I have heard in the past you had a partner at the time, I think. Y'all were teaching some of like TCCC. Yep. Y'all were teaching some of the different combat stuff. I know y'all were doing the rugged way stuff where y'all were camping out, but I knew you had been teaching some medical background stuff.
Man, I teach a lot of medical stuff.
That's awesome.
I still do when guys ask for it or whatever. That's not like a business thing. That's just if, SWAT teams or even my own unit, they need it, I'll teach it. So that's I get to do it quite a bit still. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I enjoy it. Never at that level. I did the fire, I did the EMT side, stuff like that. And so I've been through a lot of those type of classes.
Yeah.
Same thing. I would have never thought I would enjoy it, but I enjoy the true medical side of it.
Yeah,
I don't enjoy picking granny up in the middle of the night.
Right, right.
I'm good with that.
No, I learned that about myself too. So part of our training, you go work. I went and worked at Tampa General Hospital, and then I went up to West Virginia University, and part of those rotations are actually riding on an ambulance.
Yeah.
Man, I learned real quick. I was like, dude, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And when you finish the Q course, everybody's like, man, you could be a PA or a doctor or all these other things. And I just don't enjoy the clinical setting. I like doing medicine in a tactical environment, not so much in a hospital or clinic type environment. So
I get that. That's actually, like I said, I did the fire side, I've done the police side, but I've never done, other than clinical hours on the ambulance for that reason.
Yeah.
Give me the car wrecks, give me the gunshots, give me the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody puking or stubbed their toe
or you go pick them up in an ambulance. I don't know if this is proper to say or whatever, but you go pick somebody up and like, what changed today? Why am I taking you to the hospital?
Yep.
And they can't answer, or they're just like, oh yeah, my chest just hurts. And you're like, so you want to go to the hospital? Yes. I'm like, okay, guess we're taking you to the hospital.
Yep.
I was like, I don't know about this.
It's a level of patience that I never had.
No, I don't have that kind of patience either, at least not for that realm.
Yeah.
Kudos to the guys that do, though.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't realize you had that. I didn't realize you went the Green Beret side into the medic side.
Mm-hmm.
So what deployment wise after you went Green Beret, what's that look like for you?
Right out of the Q course, I went back to Iraq. It looked exactly the same way as I left it. And that was about a 9-year span in between those two trips.
Wow.
And I actually went out to a little place called Taji, Iraq, which was a fraction of the size it used to be. Spent 6 months there training a new special operations unit that they were standing up. Came home from that. And for that one, I actually volunteered for that trip because it had been a while since I'd went, and it was a good opportunity to go. And came home, and that was with another unit. That unit was actually out of Maryland. And when I came home, I was just going to stay with those guys. You make friendships, you go on a trip together or whatever. And I was like, I'm just going to stay up here. I got a phone call back here in Mississippi saying, hey, we'd really like you to come back to Mississippi to the unit here. And, I talked about it with my wife. We went back and forth. I ended up doing that. And lo and behold, I came back, and a year later found myself in Northwest Africa out in the middle of nowhere, which was hands down the best trip I've ever been on. It was awesome. I loved every minute of it.
Tell me a little bit about it.
Oh, man. So that's a long story, but to me, it was pretty cool. Like, I flew over by myself. So the team was split in half. Half the team went early, and just because of logistics of getting everybody and everything on aircraft. And so they get over there, and they realize, hey, we need another medic because we can't do anything without the other medic. So instead of me coming on the second wave, they just put me on a plane, and I fly civilian all the way to Niger, Africa, and land there. In civvies, my dudes are waiting on the other side of the airport. They're in civvies. It was a totally different experience. Get out, jump in a Land Cruiser, and then ride off into the desert, wait on a flight for a bush plane to come pick us up, fly us from there on a 5-hour flight out to this little tiny area in the middle of nowhere, Africa. And at the time, we were told we were the furthest out Americans in the world. Like, no other Americans were as far out as we were. And they actually told us we wouldn't be able to stay there. They were like, you guys are so far out there, you're going to have to be episodic. You're going to have to go out there, do some training, do some things, and then come back to like the mothership. And we basically said, no, we're not doing that. We'll do whatever we got to do to stay out here. And that's what we did. We lived in the desert with the people, by, with, and through for 6 months. And it was amazing. It was a really good time.
So y'all were mostly training that local force? Because back up a little bit, in the Special Forces world, all that, Green Beret-wise, y'all's job mostly is y'all do a lot of training.
Yes,
correct?
that's right.
That's kind of, if you would walk down that, not being military, I follow a lot of military,
Yeah.
but let you kind of, for the viewers and the listeners, kind of the role of the Green Beret, because I know it differentiates from you guys, the SEALs, the Rangers, the MARSOCs, all the different ones.
Yeah. So Green Berets do a lot of exactly what you said, training. So everybody imagines John Rambo,
Yeah,
or Call of Duty, where it's just like kinetic all the time, bullets are flying and you're getting after it. I'll say there was probably definitely times in the last 20 years that's what it was,
yeah,
in Afghanistan. But the actual bread and butter is going in and teaching the local people how to do those things and to stand up for themselves and to help fight back, whatever it is. So just where we were, the threat was Boko Haram, and that's what we were helping those guys be able to stand up against.
Wow. And I ask that because I know I follow a bunch of different guys online, different stuff, and it always seems like some of the, and then from the law enforcement side, fire side classes I've been to and all that, your Green Beret guys, y'all have a specialty for teaching. It seems like, and it makes a lot of sense too when I hear what you're doing with Holos and what you're doing with the instructions that we're going to talk about a little bit more. So
yeah, it's to be a force multiplier. It's not to constantly say I am the guy and you got to have me. It's for me to empower you that when I leave, you can continue doing whatever it is on your own. You don't need me anymore. If you always need me, I haven't done my job correctly.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That's awesome.
yeah.
So after that, so that's your Africa. Now, when did you have more deployments after that?
No, just like training exercises,
Okay.
normal trips. I mean, it's still training people or training ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's not considered a combat rotation necessarily.
Okay. Now, when did you come out of the military?
I'm still in.
So you're still active.
Yeah.
I thought there was a situation. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, let me hear it.
Thought there was something to do with the COVID time period.
Yeah. I mean, I was still in the Guard. I was still
Okay.
in the Guard. I just wasn't on active duty orders anymore.
You came out.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
came off orders for about 6 months, and now that's kind of playing in. We're pretty much caught up to how all this writing a guide and all of that started. And there's like a whirlwind of things from a faith perspective. I can't deny that side that it, all along throughout, looking back now, it's way easier to see God's hand in every movement. Things that I thought were failures or things that I thought weren't working out right were actually, they kind of had to happen that way. So I came off active duty orders, right? And tried the rugged way thing. It didn't pan out exactly as planned. So I was like, well, at least I tried. Maybe that's a failure. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But as I came back off, a friend of mine offered me a position back in the military because the restrictions were waived and everything. They said, we have this new position. It's called Human Performance and Wellness Coordinator. Like, what is that? And they were like, we don't really know. It's like being pushed down to us. It has to do with health. You're a medic. You also used to be, I was a master fitness trainer in the military way earlier on. They were like, it kind of fits you and, it'll get you back on orders. I was like, absolutely. We'll figure it out. So I come in for that position with just a blank slate. Nobody knows what to do with it, what it is. Turns out it is just the Army's new holistic approach to health and wellness. So mind, body, spirit, emotional, all the things, being resilient and being taken care of. And I kind of looked at that and was like, well, what's important to the command? And that is retention and suicide prevention, addiction prevention, all these like crisis management stuff. And when I started thinking about that, I said, well, and this translates very well into law enforcement or first responders or anything. It's like, man, we're redlining. We're waiting till a guy is about to make a really bad decision and hoping he calls a hotline.
Yeah.
Hoping that a friend reaches out or he'll call one of his friends. So it's like, well, how do we get left of that? Where do I go to keep a guy healthy where we don't end up there, or we have less guys ending up there? Around the same time, my marriage was a wreck, if I'm just being completely vulnerable with you. So yeah,
please do.
I mean,
we're
coming up on 18 years. Yeah. But we definitely went through a really rough patch. So all of this is happening simultaneously. Okay.
Yeah.
Like this is all layered in the same time period. I'm trying to get back at work, right? Start back with this HPW coordinator thing. I came off a team at the same time due to an injury and due to my marriage. Like I probably would have never left the team had I not went into a crisis mode myself. And so like that's all happening. And then simultaneously a friend of mine is like, hey dude, there's this webinar you need to listen to for your new job. I think it'll help. And he's another 18 Delta Special Forces medic. I was like, okay, is it free? And he's like, yeah, it's free. Sign in and listen to it. I said, okay. So I get on there, and it happens to be the guy that came up with operator syndrome. It's Dr. Chris Free is on there talking about operator syndrome. I'm like, man, this dude knows me. He knows about my injuries, TBI, blast wave exposure, sleep problems, hormone problems, a lot of the stuff we were talking about before we started recording. And I started diving into that. Since then, I've actually done a sit down with him and listened to him talk more about it. You know, I was supposed to be interviewing, and I think I just kind of got stargazed just listening to him and the medical side of all of it. And what I tried to do is take that and say, how do I make this where, you know, the trigger puller, the dude that's actually in the arena, how do I get him to take all this medical knowledge and all this feedback and actually apply it? Again, maybe that's going back to that Green Beret, trying to be an instructor thing. Mm-hmm. How do I help them help themselves without needing someone there to make it happen?
It sounds like too, kind of take a step back, because I'm curious, when you came in the beginning of your military career versus now, because I know I can see a big difference from when I went into the fire service in 2009 and law enforcement and all that to now. The change in general throughout everywhere, it seems like the commands, quote unquote, are starting to actually recognize we have a problem. Yeah. Whereas for so long it was neglected, I believe, until the moment of crisis. And then it was like, oh, what do we do now? What do we do now? Now we got a problem. Now this guy's crazy. Now this.
Yeah.
And so kind of a little bit about, you know, how that's changed, what the evolution of that's been, is one thing I'm curious about. And then we can really start diving into the details of the practical ways that we fight some of that stuff and handle it, because I can say, man, that myself and dozens of guys that nobody else knows about, I mean, we all face those crises.
Yeah.
And that's one of my big things I push for now, and I know you do too, is that transparency, that vulnerability of, dude, we're not superheroes.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I always make this a point to say this. One of the biggest things that changed me, that got me interested in realizing that, hey, maybe I need to do some therapy, maybe I need some help, maybe I'm not the best version of myself, all this, is actually the Sean Ryan podcast.
Yeah.
And when I started seeing Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Deltas, specifically some like DJ Shipley, Eddie Penny, different ones, that these are the most badass people in the world. And they're sitting here talking about how, man, I wish I would have done this for my mental health 20 years ago.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wish I would have known this, and maybe I wouldn't have 3 divorces under me and addiction, all these rehabs. You know, and so many of those guys like yourself have come out and they've started talking about this topic. And I know when I say that, it's amazing the amount of guys I talk to that they're like, Dude, yeah, same thing. Like I saw those same guys talking about that, hey, they actually need to care about their mental health. They do these, 20-minute walks. They go to therapy. They are willing to take medication and all this, because for so long it was just, grab the bull by the horn and go kind of mentality. And they don't last forever.
No, it doesn't work forever. It's not even a Band-Aid, really. It just causes issues later down the line, I guess. Yeah. I mean, eventually it catches up with you. There's only so much compensating you can do before you crash, and that's whether you're bleeding out or you are mentally spiraling the drain every day.
And unfortunately, it seems like most of the time, if it's neglected, it doesn't come out subtly. It's usually ugly.
Yeah.
It's like a big bomb that goes off, because it's 10, 15, 20 years of everything piled up. And then all at one time, something triggers it. I know that was kind of what happened with me.
Yeah. Well, man, and I kind of explain it this way in my classes, is you have an emotional bucket. Let's just call it a bucket. And that bucket has a limit. And, everybody gets all weird when you start talking about childhood and it affecting you as an adult and whatever. They're like, man, that's some hooky kooky stuff. Like, I had a great childhood. I loved it. Yeah. But there are things that you put in that bucket as a child, whether your childhood was great or not, you put something in that bucket. So it's already got something in if you don't deal with it. And then especially if you choose a lifestyle or career in high stress profession, you're going to put a lot in that bucket. And if you're not, this is going to sound real crazy, if you're not laughing or crying or working your way through those emotions, eventually it all comes spilling out all at once. And so when you first start, and this was my experience, when you first start talking to someone about that stuff, it's very surface level things. It's like the acute things that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, you're like, dude, that was a year ago. That was 3 years ago. This was 5 years ago. It was 15 years ago this happened. That's crazy. Why am I even talking about it and still crying about it? And my guy was like, dude, it's because you never shed a tear over it or you didn't laugh. You've got to expel that energy somewhere. And if you're just holding on to it, so we've talked a lot about the word anxiety gets thrown around a lot. And this is how anxiety was explained to me, is that it is a physiological expression of something's wrong. So, and that made sense to me because as a medic, when someone is shot and they're bleeding out, they start getting this, like, they know they're going to die feeling. Mm-hmm. That's anxiety, right? And it's their body telling them something's wrong. You're bleeding out. This has to be fixed. It doesn't have to be bleeding out, though. It can be emotions that are undealt with that you're not talking through, you're not experiencing, you're not fixing, or whatever it is. And then your body's telling you through, panic attack or that panicky feeling or that worry that wakes you up at 2 a.m. You're like, I don't even know what I'm worrying about.
Yep.
But it's there. It's telling you something is off, something you're not dealing with. And when that was explained to me that way, I was like, dude, that makes so much sense as to why we even feel anxiety. I don't know how true or accurate that is, but it makes a lot of sense to me that if you don't deal with something, anxiety is the byproduct of it.
Yeah. No, it makes sense to me. And like the analogy I use for that a lot of times is, cause I forget who I heard it from, but if you have a piece of wood stuck in your leg,
mm-hmm.
you're not just gonna leave it there, because if you do, it's gonna fester, it's gonna get infected, and it's eventually you're gonna go all the way to the point of losing your leg and then going septic and it killing you.
Yeah.
At some point you have to take it out.
That's right.
And it's as painful as it's gonna be to take it out, it's gonna be a whole lot better to take it out than to leave it in. And over time, if you just always ignore all the things happening to you, you essentially end up with all these pieces of wood all throughout your body.
Mm-hmm.
That are just killing you slowly. And like, that was my venture down it, in a way of, I didn't know until I did therapy, similar to what you said too. I used to laugh at people that would talk about, their childhood stuff and all.
Yeah.
Understandably, sexual assaults, physical abuse, stuff like that. That's a different ballgame. Absolutely. I understood that. I never laughed at that. But it was like, I would kind of laugh at myself like, man, I had a terrific childhood.
Right.
I have like one of the best families ever. Until you get into therapy and then you start realizing like, oh yeah, this little thing that happened when you were 10 years old it actually framed how you view that certain interaction for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
That insecurity that, somebody caused you to have when you were 13, well, now you judge and react to everybody the rest of your life off of that. And so it really is wild. And this is something I try to get across to people now is it's very easy in the military side and the first responder side, police side. Everybody's like, PTSD from the big stuff, the deaths we see, the gunfights or the fires or the friends dying and all that. A lot of times, and you can probably really dive into this better, is like, I know for me personally, those events aren't the ones that have really messed with me or bothered me significantly. They were kind of the things that once I started diving into like what really bothers me, it was the compilation of all these little things over time. Yeah. And then a big event like that happens. And it's kind of like that was the bomb that went off, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense.
That kind of brought everything out. But that's not the actual problem.
Yeah.
It was all this other stuff that wasn't properly handled for 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And now this triggering event, the bomb went off kind of deal.
Yeah. I think, I talk to a lot of guys, and guys in these professions will just use like shooting somebody. Use that as an example. A lot of times that doesn't necessarily bother people. Like, and I'll use myself as an example for that. And I'll say, when I started going to counseling, they asked a lot of questions about like deployments and what you've done and this and that. Does it bother you? I'm like, no, like not really. Like those dudes, I feel like they deserve to die. They were raping people. They were burning down villages. They were human trafficking people and slaves and you name it, man. War crimes through the roof. Those dudes were terrible people. They needed to die. What really bothers me is my wife's living on the other side of the house because I've been gone so long and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be a husband the right way. I don't know how to be a dad the right way. And the thing I care about most, I'm losing. And so all this other stuff does affect you. I'm not saying it doesn't. It does affect you, but it isn't what is really breaking you. Yeah. What's breaking you is the stuff that we're one-sided, man. When you're a war fighter or anything like that, you get really good at it. A firefighter, a law enforcement officer, a military guy, if you're passionate about it, you get really good at those skills.
Yeah.
And we neglect the other side of our life, even though we really care more about that side of our life than we do this other thing. Like this is weird. It's like two horses pulling you apart on each side of where do I need to commit my time? Where is my identity? I talk about that in my class too, man. Yeah. Like, where do you identify? Because the uniform goes away. And also you've got to take care of these things you really care about and yourself, because this is going to go away at some point.
Man, you just said something that really hit. As I sit here and think about it, what you just said about how, when in your situation, you're overseas, taking life, you're working and all that. That's not the problem. It's all the stuff back home. Like for me as a firefighter, as a cop, I know, going to the station was a relief.
Yeah.
Like that was peaceful.
Yep.
Like give me all the chaos. And that's where I feel the most comfortable. It's where I feel the most peace. And I've talked to therapists, I've talked to other guys about it, military and first responders, and it makes sense. It's what we're trained for.
Yep.
That's where we thrive. It's our personalities. And also in the chaos, your brain can't think about anything else. Mm-hmm. So it's very peaceful in a weird way.
I agree.
It's when the next morning you go home.
Yeah.
And now, like you said, your marriage is in trouble. Your finances might be in trouble. You're trying to figure out how to be a new father. All these things that you haven't actually been trained for.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Who trains you for that?
That's what, I
had a counselor tell me that. He was like, dude, if we were talking and I was like halfway through our conversation, and this wasn't even like a real therapy session. This was just us having lunch. We were talking about this exact or very similar thing, and he was like, I was like, dude, so you're telling me if dads and best friends did their job, you wouldn't have a job? And he was like, basically, yeah, but it's never going to happen. Like, where do we have time in the day? Like, when do we just don't, as a culture, we just don't prioritize it as much. But that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get taught how to be a dad, how to be a husband, how to manage finances, all that. We get taught how to do our skill, whatever that skill is. And then we find identity in that skill of how good we perform said skill, whatever it is. And when the house stuff, the stuff we really care about starts going away, this is almost every time this is what happens, or I've seen happen. Everything at home starts falling apart and nobody knows about it. We're really good at like holding it together until we can't. And then it starts showing up on the job, and then the job starts falling apart. And then you're like, dude, the two things I care the most about are falling apart. I can't keep it together, and I'm such a piece of crap. Like, what is wrong with me? And then, man, that leads to a really dark place going down.
Yeah.
Like, the whole meaning of life starts slipping away. Like, why am I here? Because I'm not a good dad. I'm not a good husband. I'm not good at whatever it is you do. And you're like, what's the point in me being here anymore?
Yeah.
It's just better off. That's a quick, slippery slope, right?
That, dude, you just described my life.
Yeah.
2.5, 3 years ago. I mean, that was it. I mean, in a 6-month time period, I lost, wife. I lost 50% custody of kids. I lost badge and gun because all that started spiraling. Like you said, then it was trying to go to work to escape the harsh reality of home. But then it started showing up in work. I was making mistakes. Attitude was bad. I mean, I was running on 2 hours of sleep. It just, everything accumulated into a really bad time. And then that's what, part of my testimony that most of my listeners know, that's what led to me with a gun, going to take my own life it was solely because of, I felt like I failed at my marriage, as a father, as a son, as a brother. All those things were the first things that I would list I failed at.
Yeah.
Then it was, I failed as a cop, lost my badge, which lost identity. And so it was just all these things. I lost identity as a husband, as a father, as a cop, all in a few months. And it just, when you ripped all that away, I was done.
Yeah. Who's left?
I was done. I had nothing else at that point. But again, like I think back, if there's things that I wish I would have done 15 years ago, the knowledge I have now, if I'd have had it then, and that's why I care so much about, especially, and I love what you're doing, is needing to educate younger men earlier, especially going into these jobs. And I was thinking about that kind of this morning on the way here, I know before my experiences the last couple of years, anybody who wanted to talk to me about, hey, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a cop, anything like that, it was always about the running, the gunning, the house fires, the physical fitness, all the rock star kind of side of it. Never sat down and said, hey, man, this is what it's really going to cost you. Like, nobody did that with me. Yeah. I just thought it was going to be cool as hell to put on turnout gear and run into a building that was on fire.
It is cool. Nobody's denying that. It's super cool. Yeah.
And of course, oh, well, you may die in there. Okay, no big deal.
Yeah. Blaze of glory, dude.
Nobody set me down and was like, hey, man, if you don't manage your mental health, if you don't do all these things right at home, it's going to cost you family. It's going to cost you, being on medication. It's going to cost you all these mental health side of things. I probably would have done some stuff different back in the day. Yeah. And I think it's changing now.
It is. And I think that's why the class is so well accepted, because the timing is just right. Yeah. I mean, people are willing to accept it right now. Yeah. Because I can't tell you how many end of course critiques I get that say, I wish I'd have had this 20 years ago. I wish I'd have known this. I wish I wouldn't have been, I wish I didn't get to this point where my whole life's falling apart. I've had guys come up to me at the end of class and be like, dude, you described me up there. And I'm like, yeah, because I was you. Like, I've lived this life too, man. Like, it's tough. And with that being said, kind of going back to what you started with, is I've started doing that in this HPW job in the military. Like I retire probably somewhere around August, September timeframe, I'll come out. But what I've started doing is I do a lot of new recruit interviews that are that doesn't necessarily mean they're new to the military. They're just new into special operations or trying to be. And we go through all the cool guy questions like how far can you ruck? How fast is it? Where's your runs? What do you deadlift? And all the things. And then I'm like, hey man, you married? Yeah. Like, how is that? What does she think about you being here right now? All right. Do you got kids? Let's say you do make it past selection. Are you moving them up to Fort Bragg to go to the Q course? Or are you going to be a geo bachelor for 2-3 years? Let's talk about all of that. What is your real plan? Or have you thought that through? Yep. Or are you just thinking about jumping out of airplanes and pulling triggers, man? Because it's going to affect them. And if you care about them, we need to start talking about that right now. And how you take care of them through it. And then guys are like, you need to tell her everything. You need to tell her how long it's going to be, how much away time you're going to have, what deployment rotations look like on the backside of this job. And I'm not trying to discourage you by any means. Like if this is a calling. And if you feel called to it, then you need to follow it. But she's part of it too. Yeah. So your family has got to know everything. Now, if you're a single dude and you're just blazing, send it. Like, don't, who cares at that point? But if you got a family, you got more to look after than just yourself. And I wasn't told that in that way. Yeah. If I was too hard-headed to listen, and I don't even remember it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody like really set me down. They were just like, you want this. I was like, yeah, I'm willing to die for it. Like, I'll die in the woods of Fort Bragg before I come home without it. So,
well, dude, I love that you're doing that, because that gets missed a lot. Even on the law enforcement side, the fire side, because it is very similar, fire side, 24 on, 48 off.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And, it's one thing, like I've seen the guys that, they become firemen at 20, they later meet their wife, they come into the, wife knows what she's getting into. And then I've seen the guys that come in at 30 that they've been married 7-8 years. They got kids and their wife's used to the 8 to 5.
Right.
Now they're gone 24 hours at a time. And same thing with the police side and all that. But I just think it's overlooked a lot. And then when it comes to the training side on the mental health side in law enforcement, I was talking to another friend of ours, Tim Rutledge.
Oh, yeah.
That runs Leaps.
Yep.
Went through Leaps a couple of weeks ago, and kind of on that note, I'll say, because you made me think about it a while ago, Leaps is Law Enforcement Alliance for Peer Support. So we will dispatch to officers who are in crisis, especially after like officer-involved shootings, very stressful incidences, gory incidences, things that are going to mess with you, and we're there to support those officers. But it goes way beyond that. It's also a network so that if one of our officers is in crisis, they can call one of the Leaps members, have a conversation with us, talk to us about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and it's completely privileged by law. Right. And so chief, sheriff, mayor, governor cannot call and say, hey, I need to know what that officer said. Yeah. No, it's none of your business. They're calling and it's privileged. So with all that, going through the class, really the week-long class is about letting out your personal deepest, darkest secrets.
Right, that's right.
And getting to hear everybody else's. And I mean, there were 54 of us in the class.
Oh, wow, that's a big class for Tim.
It was a really big class. It was his second biggest class he's ever done.
Yeah.
And, I sat there, shed a lot of tears, because you would not believe some of the stuff that people have gone through.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, you sit around and you realize, like, man, everybody has crap that they're going through. And the other thing that shocked me was whenever there's a part where we talked, if you're willing to talk about the worst thing that's happened in your life.
Right.
A few people talked about certain calls or shootings. Majority was life outside.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Law enforcement.
Yeah.
It was stuff that happened as a kid. It was stuff that happened in marriage, stuff like that, had nothing to do with law enforcement. And so that
just validates everything we just said.
Absolutely.
Then, yeah.
And so that's what I was sitting here thinking about the whole time you were saying that, is I saw that, and that was one of the things that shocked me. Really big. Yeah, let's take a break. So had a quick little break. So jump back in. So we were talking about, I went through leaps.
Yep.
And got to learn, like I said, probably my biggest takeaway from going through that is the solidification of everything we've been talking about. Is that actually it's life that gets to us a lot of times more than doing the job.
That's right.
And I told you I was talking to Tim Rutledge about this and a couple other guys in the class. Take, for instance, on the law enforcement side, we go through an 11-week academy.
Mm-hmm.
We're taught all kind of stuff, tons and tons of hours of firearms, combatives, vehicles, law, all this stuff. If I'm not mistaken, there was a 2-hour block on mental health and family out of 11 weeks.
Yeah.
And then outside of, 8-year fire career, 2-year police career, that weekend leaps, that was the only other really mental health training, support, anything that I've gone through. And so kind of want to talk about that a little bit of just, I don't know on the military side how much there is, but there's just been such a lack. We focus so much on going into the fight, which is why I think we are so comfortable there. But actually, when we start talking about suicides and all, statistically in law enforcement, you're 3 times more likely to commit suicide than you are to die in a line of duty shooting.
Yeah, it's the number one cause of death for high stress professionals.
Yep.
So I had to look up all these statistics, or I decided to look. I don't know that I had. Maybe I did have to internally. I had to with teaching the classes. I was like, man, I want to know all the statistics for high stress professions, law enforcement, first responders, and military. Mostly, there's more statistics there than anywhere else. Number one cause of death, suicide. Yep. We kill ourselves faster than bad guys can kill us.
Yeah, and we put all this time and effort into training.
Yeah,
to go fight the bad guy.
Yep.
But our worst enemy sitting at home with us on the couch when we're alone.
In the mirror.
Yep.
Yep.
And dude, that was probably so similar as I started SaveOne, as I went through my journey of trying to learn more about mental health for my own well-being. Haven't really told a lot of people, but I am working on writing a book as well, like I told you.
Yeah.
And so that leads down that road of all that research and all. And out of all the statistics, man, I remember when I read that one, like I just stopped. And like that statistic hit me so hard because I thought about all the hours I have on a range shooting, getting ready to go in a fight. And actually my biggest threat is turning that gun on my own self.
Yeah.
And it just hit me so hard. And then that's really what fuels even more of a passion in me now.
Mm-hmm.
Is both for my own health, but also being there for other people. So
that's man, that's how I kind of sell the class. I say sell the class. I'm not a sales member. That's how I pitch the class to guys. Is I'm like, especially if I'm teaching TRIC, we'll say the tactical casualty care class. I'll be like, man, I hope you never have to use this. And in statistically speaking, you may use it a handful of times over your entire career.
Yeah.
But I do teach another class that you will use absolutely every day of your life. Like that, this one will matter. And I've been invited back a couple times before I started doing it officially, when I was just kind of like beta testing it or whatever you want to call it, just throwing it out there. Guys will be like, I kind of want to hear about that. Yeah, sure. And I come back and give them it was real rough at first. Like it was me on a whiteboard drawing and trying to explain things. And they were like, dude, I've never heard this before. But I think it's needed. It's definitely needed. And it's been accepted everywhere. Like I haven't had a single like group of guys be like, dude, this is crazy. Like, what are we doing here? We're wasting our time. Everybody is like, this is spot on.
Well, I think for so long, I know when I came in 09, a lot of the firefighters I came under were amazing guys, but they were 20, 30-year guys. They came up through the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s and all. And I mean, they were hard dudes. And it was still a lot of that mentality of, man, toughen up.
Yeah.
Oh, something's bothering you? well, you're not being man enough kind of mentality around things. And all it was a bunch of dudes not being honest about their own problems.
That's right.
You know, it was just, we hid it. Everybody hid it for so long. I did it.
Yeah.
I feel horrible for some of the things I said to some of the guys under my leadership when I was younger and dumber. But I just feel like now that people are being more open, and when you have those type of statistics, any of us who are very type A, any of us who are in that training world, you know, if you show up to a training, the big question is, all right, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's a BS class that I'm not really going to use, I'm not going to put a lot of effort into it. That's just
right.
how a lot of us are wired. Now, if I show up and we're talking about tactics or clearing or whatever, it's something where you can say, hey, this is the application of how you're going to use this.
Right.
Well, now you got buy-in. And so that's kind of what you're saying is like when you show guys these statistics and you let them realize that, hey, even the most badass people in the world are dealing with these things, it starts getting accepted more. And
right.
I think that's where we're getting to at this point. So I have your book. I also have this linked in the description. So I marked a couple things in here I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
So one of the thing I like about your book, it is not a lot of filler material. It is very operator written.
Well, you want me to tell you how that even came to be?
Absolutely,
because I'm not a author by any means, and the way it's written is very deliberate because I was so I wrote a PowerPoint deck essentially for my guys, and been teaching it and developing it over I guess the last 3.5 years or so, and with me coming to the end of my career and everything, I was like, man, what am I going to do next? What does life look like? And like I said, I had kind of soft pitched this to a couple actually local departments here and just did a very quick, like 4-hour breeze over what I was teaching my guys. And it was well received. And so I actually called out to RCTA in Meridian. You're familiar with the Regional Counter-Narcotic Training Academy? Yeah. So I call out there. I used to work there. I worked there for about 1.5 years, teaching T-TRIC. And so I was like, hey, I have this class that I've been teaching my guys. Maybe it translates well into law enforcement. I don't know. But if it does, I'll just send it to you and you guys can start using it because our guys like it. I've soft pitched it here a couple times. Really, at first, it really wasn't for me. It was just because I thought it was something everybody needed, honestly. And they were like, dude, we're trying to get into resiliency right now. We have leaps. And so I ended up going into one of Tim's classes also. And they're like, you need to come over here and just brief us. Do us like a 4-hour thing like you've been doing there. So I did. Got done. They're like, dude, we love it. So I came back and they're like, make it for law enforcement. Make it like the statistics and all the things applicable for those guys as well. Yeah. I said, okay. So I go back, and as I'm making the course and thinking about how to teach it and what it should look like, I was like, man, every good course has a guide, like a student handbook. Yep. So I just start writing these little student handbooks along the way. And I had written probably, I don't know, however many chapters it is. I had written about half that but it wasn't chapters. It was sections of the class. And that probably makes it make more sense to you now because it's written for the class originally.
Absolutely. Because as I started reading it, that's really what I felt like it was. It was like a manual that you hand me when I walk into class.
And it wasn't even going to be that. So I sent it to a friend of mine, and I'd had no idea. So I sent it to him. He didn't reply to my text. And I sent him like 4 of them, 4 chapters of it, if you will. And he didn't reply. And I was like, oh, maybe they suck. Whatever. It's not that big a deal. He calls me that afternoon. He's like, hey, man, how many of these things have you written? And I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11. And he was like, dude, I was sitting. He said, you didn't know this, but I was sitting in the doctor's office about to get my blood drawn for hormone replacement therapy. And I was like, cool. I think I sent you that one. He's like, you did. He's like, while I was waiting, I read it because I was sitting in there and it was titled testosterone, supplementation and HRT, I think, or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And he was like, I read it. I go back. I have my talk with the doc, and we're getting ready to do the blood draw. And he's like, I literally opened up to the page where you have all the things I should get drawn.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, draw these. Exactly. I want you to make sure I get all of this drawn. And the doctor was like, where'd you get this? Like, what is this? And at the time, it's not a book, you know, it's just a PDF on his phone. And he's like, oh, dude, one of my dudes sent it to me. And he's like, what do you mean one of your dudes? And he's like, well, he's a special forces medic. And he's like, where did he get this? So he asked me on the phone, he's like, where did you get it? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I've been a medic for years.
Yeah.
I've been on HRT myself for forever. I've been around guys doing it, and this is what works. This is probably the best list I've come up with for what you need drawn and checked every 6 months. And he was like, well, that doctor said you need references attached to this. And he was like, I would go further to say, take all your little student guides, put them together, and make a book. And I was like, nah. I ain't right, dude. I'm not an author. I'm not writing a book. And he was like, yeah, dude, you need to. And then it all of a sudden turned serious. And
that is awesome.
I started trying to put it together. And like I said, it's not something you would take to the lake and lay by the lake and read. It's not like a book. I don't think a lot of people call it a book. And I guess it is technically a book, but I refer to it as a guide. It is.
Yeah.
If you are in any kind of high stress profession or, and here's what's, dude, I say that. Here's what's crazy. I've had people buy this book that were truck drivers or they work in a cath lab. And then they tell me later, you know, in passing, they're like, dude, I read your book. It's freaking awesome. And I'm like, what do you do? Thinking they're going to tell me I'm a firefighter or something. He's like, no, I work in a cath lab. I was like, in a cath lab? And he's like, yeah, dude, he's like, let me tell you how it's relevant to me. He's like, I'll be in an operating room doing a cath on a patient, me and a whole team, and the patient will die on the table. And before you have time to process that, you move to the next OR to do the exact same procedure on the next person and hope it goes right. And you never see that person again. Yeah. And he was like, dude, that at the end of the day, you get home and you're like, what happened today? And I was like, dude, I didn't even think about that when I was writing. Dude, I had no idea that a truck driver was going to say, dude, it's a high stress, man. It's wearing me out and destroying me and my family. Yeah. So it was intended for special operations, I guess, initially, and then law enforcement. And then I was like, well, first responders and firefighters. And now I guess any job where you are stressed to the max, you're running at 1,000 miles an hour. Yeah. I guess it is applicable. I'm being told it is. So,
well, no. And like, I completely can see that and understand that. And that's something that has really changed. And like, I mean, the book I'm writing is on a lot of, empathy and understanding, other people, understanding, especially people who are going through any kind of crisis. Yeah. And one of the things I've learned throughout my journey and then throughout research, writing the book and all that, we get so caught up in thinking that you can't relate to other people. Especially because of titles and stuff like that. But like you said, it's applicable to everyone. Stress is stress.
That's right.
Trauma is trauma. I know you've heard that and probably repeat it. We all are dealing with stuff. And like we said a while ago, 54 officers in a LEAPS class, I would say 80% of the stories in there were nothing to do with law enforcement. It was everyday life that every single human being that walks this earth is dealing with, challenges. And so now what I do think and appreciate, and it's the reason I follow so many military guys, is I believe y'all have a elevated exposure, I guess you could say, to it. And guys like yourself are very active in the space of taking training, taking habits and all that and pushing it out while it looks like it's going to the SF community and stuff like that. No, it's applicable to everybody. I mean, one of the chapters of sleep hygiene. Yeah. I think about the 18-wheeler driver. Yeah. Like that's gotta be, running on low sleep. The gut performance you talk about in here, Obviously TBI, blast wave stuff, that's going to be military, some SWAT type stuff. The big ones that jumped out to me that I looked at a lot was the always switched on.
Yeah.
That sympathetic nervous system that is, it's just always on. You're always in fight or flight. And the toll that takes on your body. That's something that I never really realized. I mean, I've battled a few different health issues, and now hindsight looking back, I see it. I'm like, man, I really think it was straight up because of stress and just wearing myself down. And there's a book called, I've read a little bit of it, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, I've read that.
Yep. And so I'm very interested in a lot of stuff like that now. So like, even if I wasn't in the law enforcement side or anything like that, there's so much of this that would still be applicable to me. Yeah. And like you said, the way it's written, when I started reading it, it's almost like you don't have to read it front to back even.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, right there is the chapters. As you see, it's kind of like, hey, I'm struggling in relationships. And I love that you have God and wives and how important that is. Jump to that chapter, read that chapter. Now in 6 months, it may be something different. You may start experiencing some hormone imbalance type stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a chapter on that. That's what I think I really liked about this is, it's not a front to back book. It is a guide. And that's why you have it listed as a guide for operator performance optimization and wellness. I love that part. Probably my favorite chapter was on God and wives.
Yeah.
Because I do believe 100%, the number one relationship is with God. And it really is amazing too. If you have the relationship with God, right, and you have the relationship at home, I think you can take on and overcome just about anything.
Agreed.
But unfortunately, and I'll say for myself and then for some I've seen, those are also the two areas we neglect the most.
100%.
And that's something that when I talk about, hindsight 2020, I can't turn back time. Those are probably the two main things that if I could go back 15 years, 10 years and refocus myself into, I could have avoided a lot of really bad times.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If I would have had my priorities focused correctly on those two things. But again, we don't teach that a lot.
No.
We don't mentor that into these guys. And I love what you said earlier about when you're talking to your therapist. If my therapist is listening, I love you, but I say all the time, I'm like, man, it kind of sucks that like I have to spend so much money to be able to have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is.
That's all it is.
That's all it is. It is ours is a lot of just conversation. And I say it's the most expensive Bible study I've ever been to.
Yeah. I think the Jedi mind tricks are really just getting you to say the things you need to say. That's it. I mean, I know mine has never told me what to say, told me what to do, told me like, there's no like, oh, here's the workout plan to follow for relationships and emotional stability and like crush it. There's none of that. There's no secrets that are pulled out to life. It's literally, he just knows how to say things and be patient with me to get me to say things.
Yeah.
Because I was not a very good client at first.
Yeah.
I was really good about, avoiding everything that I didn't really want to talk about.
It took about 3 months for him to get me to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 years, man.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
I played games for 3 years.
That's what so many people have that same story because it especially, I can see how some type personalities could jump in. Others you got to kind of break us down. But talking about the book, I want to go into something real quick as we kind of wrap up. Practical applications. What are some of the big? What are the big three or so? What are the things that people you see in your research and your training that we're just really getting wrong? That we need to focus more on, and how do we focus on those?
Oof. Okay.
hot seat time.
Yeah, dude. I think one, nutrition.
Okay.
Making sure that your nutrition's on point. Like, it doesn't matter. You can't outwork a bad diet. And if you are in a chronic stress situation, then you need anti-inflammatory diet, which is basically just whole foods. Quit eating junk, quit eating trash, quit drinking trash. Get all of that. That alone will solve a lot of problems. And then sleep, taking sleep serious, because you can't outwork being tired all the time. Put your phone away. Your bed is for sex and for sleep. That is it. If you're not doing one of those two things, don't be laying in bed, training your brain to lay here and scroll or do whatever else you're doing in bed. And get 8 hours of sleep. Like, I know it's I don't have like any magic tricks. It's actually doing the basics. And that's a SF thing. Do the basics better than anybody else, and all of a sudden you're special because you're really good at the fundamentals. And so fundamental good diet, fundamental good sleep habits. And then if we're talking about like things you can do, because, you know, if you're a doer, you want to do something. I like things that I can compound and get a compounding effect from. So like I'll take a cold shower in the morning. It's going to hit let it hit your face and your chest. And that's going to stimulate that like fight or flight instantly, get the sympathetic nervous system turned on. And then you learn to control it by staying in that cold water. Now, if you can do a cold plunge, that's even better. But if you don't have access to it, or you don't want to do it, or don't have time, whatever it is, cold shower works. Take a warm shower to bathe up and all your things, enjoy your shower. And at the end, go cold as you can stand it for 60 seconds in the face. And now if we want a compounding effect to that, you can do tactical breathing or box breathing, however you want to call it. It's basically 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 4 second out, exhale, and a 4 second hold at the bottom. So basically what you're training yourself, that's stress inoculation. Yep. You are giving yourself an external stressor with a cold shower, learning to stay in it and stay calm through it. And then when you get out, your sympathetic nervous system should just about be exhausted. And now you're in parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest, starting to start your day. That's a really easy way. This is going to sound real hippie, but I'm pretty sure I believe in it. You need sunlight to get vitamin D.
Yeah.
What is it? 80% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D. So to get vitamin D, get in the sun, get barefooted when you get in the sun, and it's called grounding. I know that sounds super hippie, man, but there's a lot of studies showing that it is anti-inflammatory to be in contact with the ground. And then you can do that in the sun, barefooted, for 20 minutes, and then be grateful. Add that to that package. So like, if you are of faith, that would be a great opportunity to be present in the moment, be intentional, and be grateful for your family, your job. Be grateful for the breeze that's hitting your face. If you got nothing else, you can be thankful you're alive and that breeze is hitting your face. And there's something about those three things tied together that is a physiological instant change, puts you in parasympathetic nervous system. Like, the crazy thing about all of this is it's all biblical. Like, the Bible's been right all along. I mean, we all say we believe it, but it talks about meditating on the word of God, being in prayer, being grateful, love, joy, kindness, peace, practice those things. Yeah. We just don't. Yeah. We just don't do it.
And hearing you talk about that, it also makes me think, I recently watched a podcast with Travis Haley.
Okay.
And some of the stuff he talked about, I did not realize how much of a studier he is of warriors throughout all the time and stuff, and kind of the same thing. And, he refers to it as off-gassing, how important it is to get all the bad crap out of you through sweat tents. Now, he talked about psychedelics. He talked about some other stuff. But I can tell listening to you kind of think like I do, like some of the stuff that I'm interested in now and I believe in now, for so long I thought, I was like, man, that's a hippie thing. That's a weird thing. Like, that's not whatever. I believe in all that stuff now. I mean, and there's so many people that are out there. I know we'll get Daniel, the producer here, How many days cold plunge are you at?
I go 4 days a week now, but I did a full 18 months every day.
Yeah. So he has his cold plunge tank. He's a big believer in it. I got some other buddies who do saunas for sweating, the grounding stuff, the meditation. I'm trying to learn about the meditation thing. I can go about 3 seconds right now.
yeah.
And then my brain goes 1,700 different directions.
And I mean, if you're a Christian and you're listening to this and you're thinking about like meditation sounds like a Eastern, thing or whatever, it's a different belief system. If you look at what they know about it and apply that just to prayer as a form of meditation, if you've ever been praying like I have, and next thing you know, my thoughts are like, I was really trying to talk to God, and now I'm thinking about my truck, or I'm thinking about work, or the next thing I need to do. All it is bringing yourself back to whatever it was you were talking. Like, that's practicing meditation and prayer by talking to God, and then your thoughts start drifting, bring it back, be intentional with that conversation, and stay focused on it. And eventually you get to where you don't drift out anymore. You can stay focused through it. And I'm not saying I'm good at it. I'm just saying I know what the practice is.
Well, you'll love this. So there's an audiobook I'm listening to right now. There's a guy who runs a really big podcast named Jay Shetty. Really awesome. He's like the #1 health wellness podcast in the country. But he spent years as a monk.
Really?
Also. And young, very smart guy. He has a book called Think Like a Monk. And so I'm actually listening to that audiobook right now. And it kind of encouraged me because it talks about like when he first started going and spending a month at a time with the monks and all that, and they're teaching you to meditate and all that. Same thing. He's like, man, you may make it a few seconds, and the next thing you know, your mind's off over here. But it's the big thing that they would ask them all the time, because they would see the monks that could sit there and meditate for 6 hours, 8 hours without moving and all that. I want to be able to do that. All right, well, are you willing to go down the journey to learn how to do that? Because that guy's been doing that for 30 years.
Right. That's a lifelong process.
It's the same thing with like, I really want to be an SF guy. That's not going to happen next week.
Yeah.
Are you willing to go down the journey of doing all the basics really, really, really good so you become special? And so that gave me some encouragement, because I'll even do the same thing. Like, I'll be praying and I will feel I'll be sitting there praying and then have to ask God to forgive me, because I was in the middle of, really, really talking to God. And then now here we are thinking about what I want to eat tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's like, am I really just this crazy in my head? Like, I can't even hold a thought for a moment. But that book, and that's why I started listening to that book, Think Like a Monk, because it's all about, appreciating what you have, being humble, doing all these very, very basic free things, meditation, being outside, appreciating nature, all these things you just talked about. I think you'd really like that.
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting. And like I said, it gave me a lot of encouragement, because it was like, oh, okay, this isn't something you just jump into. And I'm really bad about that.
Yeah.
If I want to start something, I want to jump into it and I want to be the best at it within a week.
Right.
And so
I'm trying to crush it.
Trying to have that patience of understanding, like, oh, okay, well, and he talks about in the book, like, oh, well, yesterday I made it 2 minutes, staying on thought. Let's try and go 2 minutes and 15 seconds today. Just little bits, 1% better every day kind of mentality. Incremental. So, I love that there are so many basic things that we can do. A lot of them I need to be doing. I'm not right now. And then, of course, in your book, there are some more advanced stuff when we start talking about blood work, TRT, hormone stuff. Obviously, any kind of substance abuse is bad.
Yeah.
There's not too many responders and military who haven't probably battled that at some point, as well as civilians. But none of that is good for us. So there is a lot more that we could dive into. That's why I really, really, really recommend getting this book, diving into it, using it as a guide, You'll find a lot of benefit in it, no matter what your career is. And so we will probably, if your busy schedule allows, dive into some of the deeper stuff in a later episode. And
yeah, no, I'd love to, man.
And go further into it. We're about to wrap up. Jordan, I just really want, what advice, what do you want to leave people with? I mean, you've had an amazing career. You've done a lot of stuff. I think your best days are ahead of you, making impacts. But at this point, what's next for Holos? And then what do you want to leave people with today?
So what's next is we have a 1-day and a 3-day class covering that material. So 1 day is like lecture blast. We do use some biotechnology, some for your wrist, whether it's a Whoop or a Garmin or whatever. Students get that because I think that qualitative data helps with when I drink a beer or when I do this or that. It messes up my sleep, and you can track your stress and everything. So that's in there. And then we have a 3-day where we go into some physical therapy and mobility, and actually do practicals with the ice baths, and getting into some gut health stuff now with potential testing of that as part of the course. So we'll see where it goes, man. Looking at RCTA, that becoming an ongoing training that we are running for them potentially, and kind of branching out from there.
Good.
So we go to Texas May 7th to train with the Texas Ranger SWAT team and the BORTAC team. We're going to go out there and give them the class as a test run and see how well accepted it is. If it is, that'll become a thing also, is traveling over there.
Awesome.
And then I've even talked to Melota in Pearl about putting it into the academy there, or into their classes, so that it is a forefront thing. This isn't something that we're playing catch up on. It's actually on the front end of guys' careers coming into it.
Well, you got a guy over there. Have you met Joseph Green yet?
I don't believe so.
All right. So he's the lead instructor over there. He was at SERPC. He was my SERPC instructor.
Okay.
And literally a little human muscle. But he's a guy that would love this.
Okay.
Because he is all about physical, mental, spiritual, everything, health, being the absolute best operator you can be.
Right.
And so got a really good one at Melota over there that would be real interested in it. That I can get you his contact too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Because I know he would be interested in this.
Okay. And then, man, like, just for a final thought, I guess, of what to leave you with is there's more important things than your career and your whatever uniform you're wearing, whatever badge, whatever. There's deeper meaning to life. I would say it would be God, your faith, whatever your faith is. I've had students that don't have faith, but they do have core values. So those core values are something you can hold on to, and then your family and kids and parents, and then, career is way down the line. And then all your things are way down the line. Your house can burn down. You can lose your car. You can lose your job. You can hop to different organizations or agencies. So all of that, if you find identity in all that, you're going to be getting blown with the wind. You got to have a more firm foundation. And that way, no matter what you lose, you still have that foundation there. So if you don't know what that is, I would say start maybe searching that out, seeing what you do believe.
That's awesome. Yeah. Find that why.
Find the why, man. You got to have it.
Yeah. That's another one of my guys, Simon Sinek. I love that. And I've been down that road. I went to one of the best exercises I had a guy show me to do one time. I was at a men's conference, and he had us all very humbly, very truthfully write down where our priorities were. Write our list down, and then take that list and really evaluate it and write down where we wanted those priorities to be. And now start gearing your whole life to building out that priority list the way you want it. And just about everybody, as long as you were honest, the list you made first did not look like the second one.
That's right.
Because it's real quick. You say, oh man, what are your priorities? Oh, God, family, work, and then it's like, okay, well, let's look at your life.
Yeah. What are you actually living?
And then it's like, okay, my whole list is upside down.
Yeah.
And so then formulating that plan of, okay, how do we build this priority list?
That's awesome.
That's something I'm still working on. I get it wrong more than I get it right, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, that's right.
And
it's
so
part of the journey,
that's what matters. But well, dude, I've enjoyed this. I'll be honest. I was trying to keep this to about an hour and a half. If I sat here and had an unlimited time, we'd probably go for 5 hours because there's so many things I do want to ask you about, talk to you about. This is something I definitely hope to do some stuff together. I hope to have you back on here. I love what you're doing, love what you stand for. Well, and I think you're going to help a lot of people.
Man, thank you. I appreciate you having me. And absolutely. If we can do this again, I would love to.
Awesome.
It's been fun.
Jordan, I appreciate it. Looks like dog's passed out. We're going to have to wake him up and get him out of here.
Yeah, he's done. He said, you guys took too long. Look.
All right, brother.
All right.